Hello, and welcome everyone to a brand new episode of Monday Night Therapy. I'm your host, Minnie Hunt, here to bring some positive vibes to your favorite therapy session of Husker sports. Tonight, we will be discussing men's basketball because the Huskers fell to 12-8 on the year and 2-7 in the Big Ten Conference on Sunday. We will also be discussing Nebraska football roster. It was updated this week, and it doesn't include 10 players, 8 of which walked on senior day, and 2 are younger players, as well as the big news on a transfer portal visit tomorrow. But with me tonight, I have Jarek Shearer. He's a writer for Corn Nation, and he's been with us before and here to talk about men's basketball. Welcome, Jarek.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here.
Hopefully, since, being on tonight, hopefully will change Nebraska's fortune in basketball.
Yes. You mentioned last week that it seemed like the last time you were here was the last time we won. Am I right?
Yep. So the last time I was on was the night before the Iowa game. And Nebraska has lost 6 straight games since.
Oh my goodness. 6? Well, Highlander Gunn has joined us and he says, "Where is everybody?" Hi, Minnie and Jarek. That's a good question. Maybe they're not tuning in because of those losses. I'm just thinking maybe they think it was them that brought this curse on.
It's been a rough couple of weeks, I'll be honest. It's been hard. It's been hard to watch. It's been devastating on multiple levels.
Yeah, we started out so good.
We did. And
to get blown out,
just a rough animal.
Yeah. To get blown out, not just once, but a couple of times. You mentioned, but Sunday, we played against Wisconsin, who's ranked number 18, and in Madison, and we lost 83-55.
And it wasn't close. Nebraska was down 19-2 just 3.5 minutes into that game. I mean, that the opening 3 to 4 minutes, and I was watching it and I went, "Ooh, this is going to get ugly quick." And to Nebraska's credit, Wisconsin went on a 6-minute scoring drought. Nebraska had brought the lead down to 3 with about 4 minutes to go in the first half. Wisconsin, unfortunately, went on a huge run after that. Got it back up to 17 before Nebraska closed it down to 12 at half. And then it just got worse from there. Wisconsin was hitting shots left and right. Nebraska just didn't do enough, again, defensively. And this is the third time that Nebraska has played a ranked opponent on the road in conference play. That's number 11 Michigan State, number 20 Purdue, and number 18 Wisconsin. Got beat by 37 by Michigan State, got beat by 34 by number 20 Purdue, and number 18 Wisconsin by 28. So there is a massive gulf in class in the Big Ten from the ranked opponents trying to find anything on the road. And Nebraska has 2 more ranked opponents, one at home in Illinois on Thursday night. But then they go out west coming up to 15th ranked Oregon, who just lost to bottom cellar dweller with us in Minnesota. But we're on the road. It's a ranked opponent. I don't expect a lot on that one either, if I'm honest. Right now, it's just a struggle bus.
What has gone so wrong? We started out hot and things are just falling apart. We're not putting the pieces together.
So on the 6-game losing streak, I've got a whole genuine page of notes and just of what went wrong in each game. And,
oh my goodness!
And I'll be honest with you, they're all different. So when we start with the Iowa game, Nebraska had a 15-point lead with 15 minutes to go in that game. They all lost by 10 in overtime. The one overriding stat that I had on that one, or two overriding stats. Iowa went 17 of 35 from three-point land. And eventually, Nebraska finished shooting 12 of 22 from the free throw line. Nebraska, for the season, shoots 74% from the free throw line. They went 12 of 22. If Nebraska shoots its season average, we win by 4 in regulation. There's no need for overtime. Nebraska takes care of business. Not shooting the ball, not hitting your free throws on the road is massive, particularly if you get into close games late. So blowing a double-digit lead, losing by double digits in overtime, that hurt. Go to then Purdue shortly after that. Look, there's nothing you can really do with that one. Purdue shot 63% from the floor, went 19 of 33 from three-point land, and Nebraska got out-rebounded by 13. That one, to be honest with you, just tip your cap to Purdue. They played really, really well. Nothing Nebraska was going to do to stop that one. Just tip your cap, burn the tape, move on. Come home.
All right.
Nebraska
Jarek,
plays at home.
Real quick. We have some comments here, and I think I should show them because it kind of echoes your sentiments. Okay, James Boardman, welcome. He says, I'm done with Freud Horberg. 6 years and nothing to show for it. Didn't bother to watch the last 2 games. I think that's what's going on. I think people are kind of tuning out because
people are starting
of
to
what
jump
you
off.
just said. Yeah.
People are starting to jump off. And Fred Hoiberg last year had a really good team. He knows when he went and got a lot of guys in the transfer portal this year, he knew it had to be a relatively experienced group of individuals who had played a lot of college basketball. There really isn't a lot of time anymore to develop a bunch of guys. And this year, the guys just haven't quite gelled as well as what last year's group did. Now, granted, last year's group actually had the previous year to kind of gel together. C.J. Wilcher, Bryce Williams, Juwan Gary, Keisei Tominaga, and those guys, all in Sam Hoiberg, had all been in the program for a couple of years, and it looked like a group that had been together. This year, over half the roster had been replaced by guys who had either graduated or transferred out. So now you have seen a bunch of seniors or younger guys who unfortunately they're still learning how to play with together. And you're going to lose Juwan Gary. You're going to lose Bryce Williams. You're going to lose Andrew Morgan, but you're going to still have a couple of bigs that are going to be around. But now it's going to be, all right, what can these guys do with an extra year in the program if they don't leave to go seek something else?
That's unfortunate. And Pitt Snipe Husker has a good solution to this problem. He says, you know what the problem is? We ain't got no Teen Wolf. Teen Wolf. As in, what was that movie called? It was called Teen Wolf, wasn't it? Yeah. With Michael J. Fox. Okay. He says, I did the research. Watched a documentary last night. I mean, maybe that's what we need.
The biggest hustle guy, and no disrespect to Sam Hoiberg, but the biggest hustle guy is Sam Hoiberg, who's 6'1", and he's probably the scrappiest guy on the team. None of the bigger guys, none of the bigger guards scrap as hard as as the coach's kid. And I think that's kind of what hurts this group. Last year, you still had Sam Hoiberg, but you had guys like a big man in Josiah Alec, a big man in Rink Mast, guys who would dive on the floor constantly. There was not a game. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. Watching last year's team, there was a 9-game stretch during the end of conference play and the beginning of the conference play. There was a 9-game stretch where Rink Mast literally had to come out of the game to get Band-Aids put on him and get the blood wiped off of him. He had to come off the court because he was bleeding and got blood on his jersey. There hasn't been an instance of that yet tonight. This entire season, nobody other than Sam Hoiberg is diving on the floor for balls. Nobody's scrapping for anything, and that's kind of what's hurting Nebraska in these last 6 games. They've lost by 10, blew the lead at Iowa, lost by 3 to both Rutgers at home and Maryland on the road, and lost by 5 to USC at home. And a few hustle plays in either direction, Nebraska in this 6-game losing streak could very easily be 4-2 if they just took care of some business on both ends of the floor.
If that really were the case, it seems to me like somebody would step up. There's got to be somebody on the roster. Who are you thinking could be that guy?
You would hope. But the problem is there really isn't one right now. Outside of Sam Hoiberg, the only guy who I can genuinely think who has done a relatively good job of doing a lot of the dirty work is Raleigh Wooster, the starting point guard, who Sam Hoiberg will come in and spell every now and again if it's not Aaron Eulis. So outside of the starting 5, you got Raleigh Wooster, who will do a lot of the dirty work. You've got Berke Buchtengel, who can do the rebounding for you. You got Braxton Mee at 7-1, who can do the rebounding. And Bryce Williams and Jawan Gary are basically responsible for the scoring. And when defenses can key on 1 or 2 guys, that makes things a lot tougher. When the rotation gets to guys 6, 7, 8, you get Connor Esigian coming in, who's a good 3-point shooter. You get Sam Hoiberg, who won't provide a lot for you offensively, but does a great job defensively. Esigian's good offensively, but it's a liability defensively. And all of a sudden, you just go, where is the hustle coming from? And outside of Sam Hoiberg and possibly Raleigh Wooster, honestly, there isn't much. And I think that's the biggest difference between last year's team and this year's team.
Wow. We were set up to do so well, though.
Yeah.
It felt like we had all the pieces we needed, coming in, replacing the seniors that left. And I guess, they're just not all coming together.
And when Nebraska was picked to be tied for 12th in the preseason conference, when the AP chose who was going to finish where, Nebraska was picked to finish tied for 12th with Wisconsin. And I kind of thought, man, that seems a little bit low. Nebraska could kind of sneak into the upper half there. And right now at 2-7, Nebraska is sitting 17th in second to last, only ahead of Washington. And the reason for that is because Minnesota beat 15th ranked Oregon at home the other night on Saturday. And now Minnesota is a game above us.
Well, okay. So here's the question. Are they even going to make the Big Ten tournament at this point? Given what we have on the schedule.
There might be a strong possibility that if this slide does not correct itself soon, that this group won't get there. The Big Ten takes 15 of the 18 teams with the expanded conference now. 15 instead of 14 go. Nebraska at 17 right now. Nebraska still has Illinois at home, which is not an easy one. Illinois is in the mid-teens.
Yep.
Oregon on the road, not good, which is not good because every ranked team we've played in conference play, we've been blown out by 25 plus. Then you go to Washington right after that. That is the only team currently sitting worse than we are.
Oh,
you will have home games. You'll have home games against Maryland and Iowa. 2 games that honestly, Nebraska should have won on the road. Possibly get them both at home. You have Minnesota at home, which should be a win because they're not much better than we are. Penn State on the road. That's kind of hit and miss. Lately, it's been more miss than hit, but that can be gettable. But Nebraska is going to have to find one of these tough ones against a ranked opponent and they've got to do it soon because they're going to leave a lot of things late. And I don't think that's not only to make the Big Ten tournament, but if they can't solve that, I mean, any sort of tournament will go out the window fast.
Vince has another good comment here. Says maybe they need to bring in Jeremiah Charles like the wrestlers did with Nash last year. He did win the dunk contest. He did. And he is a multi-sport athlete.
He is. See, the problem was Nebraska had to do that a handful of years ago was because everybody between COVID and sicknesses and stuff like that, Nebraska basketball actually had to borrow a couple of football guys to participate in the Big Ten tournament. Now, they didn't really get a whole lot of playing time, but, I mean, they were there. I'm hoping it doesn't get to that point again because things will have really gone bad if that happens.
Oh, geez. Well, we do have a star on the football team. If they need to borrow him, we know that.
If they need some, I mean, I'm sure a lot of those guys actually probably play basketball in high school.
I know. You look at it. Thomas Fedoni.
Yeah, they can't be that bad.
He was one of them. Yeah. He has his knee braces. He can dunk.
Yeah. He's got time before the NFL draft and the combine.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just kind of throw him in there, see what he can do. Oh my goodness. I mean, it sounds like we still have a pretty tough schedule left.
Yeah, it used to be there you could find some easy games in the Big Ten. And there might be 2 or 3 this year that look honestly easy-ish. Those still exist on the back end of this schedule coming up, which is fine, but you still got to take care of the opportunities that are in front of you. Nebraska could play its way back into not only Big Ten tournament conversation, but even so far as NCAA tournament conversation. But they've got to finish, I mean, probably 9-11 in Big Ten play at worst. And sitting at 2-7 right now leaves you minimal room for error.
What do you think Coach Hoiberg is saying to the players at this point?
I think honestly he's got to look at them and go, okay, 6-game losing streak. Nebraska has had 4 opportunities in games which they could have and probably should have won out of these 6 games. He's got to reiterate to what worked at the beginning of the year. Being able to close teams out at the free throw line, finding ways to hustle defensively, getting on the floor to win 50-50 balls, and not get out rebounded by everybody. Now, the one game outside of Iowa that frustrated me out of the 6-game losing streak is Maryland. When I did the recap, I wrote on my thoughts that Nebraska had did everything right but win. Now, I know that's the only thing that matters, but statistically, Nebraska was down 9 with 2.5 minutes to go at Maryland, tied the game with a minute left. And in that following minute, Nebraska decided to go full football in essence, where the offense couldn't score when it was absolutely necessary to take the lead. The defense couldn't stop somebody when it absolutely needed to. But in that last minute, but by the time it was all said and done, Nebraska had out-rebounded Maryland, had scored more points off of turnovers than Maryland, had a better field goal percentage than Maryland, but unfortunately went 6 for 11 from the free throw line, and that's why they lost by 3.
Oh, you keep mentioning our percentage of making our baskets. Seems like that is way down.
So free throw percentage wise, at 74%, Nebraska is actually one of the better free throw shooting teams in the conference. But what's killed them like the games of Iowa, the game against Maryland. I think Rutgers was the other one where we kind of struggled. When we've been way under our team average, and we've lost those games and shouldn't have. Like I said, if Nebraska shoots its free throw percentage average at Iowa, they win by 4 in regulation. If they shoot their average at Maryland, they probably go to overtime and see what they can do from there. They probably beat Rutgers instead of losing by 3. I mean, Nebraska's been right there. It's just that they haven't either been able to close teams out like they did at the Diamond Head Classic in Hawaii over Christmas, or they haven't been able to do enough defensively with their rotations like they did against Creighton in the win at Creighton. Creighton had looks. They just didn't hit them, and because guys were getting out there. The games against Purdue and Wisconsin, guys had open looks all day long. You and I could have probably shot 30 to 40% from the 3-point line because there was nobody within 10 feet of shooters. Like it was bad. Like it's bad.
Yeah. Sounds like it. Sounds like it. Okay. Aaron Keene joins us and he says, this is our year. Nebraska basketball fans. Nebraska ball fans.
Yeah. As
That's
a Chicago
what we were
Cubs
saying.
fan, yeah, as a Chicago Cubs fan, yes, I'm very familiar with this phrase. It's the two sports every year between the basketball and every time the baseball MLB season starts with the Cubs. What's wrong with this year? Why is it there's always that? What is wrong with this year? I just want nice things.
That's all. I mean, it's not much. And then Richard Johnson joins us. Welcome, Richard. He says, when does the AD have a serious talk with Hoiberg and show him the door? Ooh. Maybe he shows him like he needs to see incremental improvement. I don't know.
I think the only way Troy Dannon fires Fred Hoiberg at the end of this season is if Nebraska just turns around and just goes completely flat. If Nebraska goes even so much as 6-14 in conference play and wins 4 games from here on out, I think he's fine. If Nebraska wins 2 games from here on out, there's a real shot. But I think with how well 2 years ago should have been an NIT bid and wasn't, and last year with Nebraska actually making the NCAA tournament, it would have to take a genuinely, seriously wretched year this year for Fred Hoiberg to be fired. I really just do not see it happening. It would just be because you could give him the opportunity to say, hey, this might just be a blip. He had found a formula, we think, and now he just needs to find it where just to tweak it a little bit and say, all right, how can we still get guys that can develop and play cohesively in the same system for more than just 1 year?
Yeah. It's the problem that, well, at least football's having, and it probably affects basketball as well, is because the rules are changing every single year. So it's like whoever plays the rule changes the best has that advantage.
Yeah, exactly. If you can find a way, and even if you can find a better loophole than other coaches, you are going to have a distinct advantage.
So Anonymous says NU Hoops has run the same stuff for 3 years and everyone has figured it out. It's no longer a novelty. Biggest problem is they need 2 more guys who can score and they don't have them. That's basically what you were saying earlier.
Nebraska has Bryce Williams and Jawan Gary who can score for starters. They have Connor Essegian who can come off the bench. And outside of maybe Berke Buchnagel, there isn't a lot of offensive options. Again, Sam Hoiberg doesn't provide a lot. Braxton Mia doesn't provide a lot. Andrew Morgan can. The other night, against Maryland, he had 17. But then against USC and Wisconsin, he was relatively quiet. I mean, outside of Bryce Williams and Esigian, there's not another consistent scoring option. And that is
Mhm.
really hurting Nebraska.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. How many games do we have left?
Let's see, we're 2-7 in conference play. We have 11 left because we play 20 conference games.
Well, hopefully at some point that guy will emerge
Yeah,
because
and
we need him.
and like I said, it has to be soon because if Nebraska wants any postseason aspirations, they're probably going to have to go 7-4 in this last 11. And the way they're
Mhm.
playing right now, they might win 3, maybe 4, maybe.
Yeah. Do you think it has anything to do with the money that Nebraska basketball is able to offer? Because Juan Camacho says biggest problem is we let go all the talent from Nebraska because we don't want to develop them. Ridiculous that Tanji, Hepburn, Salas, etc. left the state. Um,
USC also had St. Thomas, who is an Omaha guy, and he came
that's right.
back and scored double digits against us in the win. You know,
Yep.
they've got a point. You know, a lot of the good Nebraska guys eventually leave.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
When you have in-state guys leaving to go to other schools, I mean, we need to offer those guys and develop them. What's the limit on basketball roster?
It's usually roughly you can dress 12.
Okay.
I think Nebraska probably has somewhere around, I would probably between scout team, probably around scout team and guys who redshirt and stuff like that. It's probably around 20 to 25, but I believe you can only dress 12 in a contest.
Oh, okay. Huh. Huh. Well,
And another name I would throw that probably isn't as big as Tanji, Hepburn, and Salas, um, but Akola Rope is another one from the Omaha area that had also gone, I believe, to Louisville originally to play college ball. But yeah, there is a lot of in-state talent that just because Nebraska basketball just doesn't have that pedigree, and it genuinely hurts. It hurts. A lot of guys who are good enough to go play Division I ball somewhere, it just doesn't mean as much to stay home. And if you do, you go to Creighton because Creighton has the better basketball pedigree.
gosh, that's horrible. That's
Yeah.
horrible. So, okay, I'm just going to show this just because then it brings a good question up. Let me just see where it was. I don't know where it was, but Pit Snipe Husker says, "Do you think it's time to let go of Hoiberg? I mean, if he's not able to recruit these guys, recruiting is half the battle. I mean, that we know that."
Yep. It's not just Fred Hoiberg who's had problems with recruiting
Mhm.
in-state talent. Tim Miles had that problem. Doc Sadler had that problem. I mean, it's gone on for quite a while. I mean, obviously Matt Davison was a homegrown guy that you could think of in the Danny Nee and Barry Collier era. And I gotta think it's probably one of the last names I can think of off the top of my head that a guy who's Nebraska that played for Nebraska basketball is Matt Davison. Baylor Shireman, who plays for the Boston Celtics right now. He's a kid from Aurora who eventually transferred. He went out of state and played. And when he transferred, he went to Creighton and then destroyed Nebraska for a couple of games. it's the homegrown talent for whatever reason. It's either you stay in state and go to Creighton, or you go somewhere else because it's a better option than what
That's
Nebraska
horrible.
basketball has, because it just doesn't have that pedigree. It just doesn't have the same pull as Nebraska
Ugh,
football with in-state kids.
ugh, I hate that. I hate that because football is not year round.
Nope,
We need
it's not.
other sports. We need other sports to come to play. I mean, ugh, that's frustrating. Nothing was
And
wrong with the way that question was worded, Pit Snipe. Sorry if I made it sound that
no,
way.
and honestly, I don't think it's time to move on from Hoiberg, at least not yet. I know this season's been a lot like what it was 3 and 4 years ago, just getting blown out of games constantly, go on a big losing streak. He has a formula, and I think honestly it was just so many guys that had to be replaced from last year.
Yeah.
If he struggles again next year, that will be probably the tipping point.
So
Is
what do you
if we struggle this year the rest of the way out, and we're just not as, and we're about roughly the same next year as we are this year, then yeah, I can see Fred Hoiberg going.
Okay. So Vince Watson asks, if you were given the power, what moves would you make to fix Nebraska basketball?
Nebraska basketball would have to, first of all, you would have to challenge the likes of your Dukes, your North Carolinas, your Michigan States, your Kentucky, your Louisville, your Blue Bloods in NIL money. Obviously now you can try, I mean, you can go get guys and pay them, which obviously you couldn't do a few years ago. If you can compete with NIL money, that could give you a good shot of getting a random guy or two to come in to play Nebraska basketball. The other big problem is you're going to need a couple of guys in state who have a Dylan Raiola like sentiment. Is I want to be the guy.
Yeah.
Dylan Raiola wants to bring Nebraska football back to prominence. You are going to need a couple of guys from in Nebraska itself that says, I want to be the guy that puts Nebraska basketball on the map. I want to be the guy who is on the team that finally wins an NCAA tournament game. And we just don't have those guys right now because they know they can get paid somewhere else, more money, and they can be on better teams to go play in the NCAA tournament almost every single year, or they can turn around and they can make deep runs in the tournament every now and again because they're on much better teams. Right now, you know, the three guys that were mentioned, Tanjay, Salas, and who was the other one? You know, or guys like St. Thomas and those for USC, you know, you don't have those guys that they all want to go somewhere else because they think it's a better spot for them than what Nebraska is.
They're not starting as freshmen. They're being developed, right?
St. Thomas is a starter at the present moment at USC because I think their starting shooting guard got hurt, but he started half of their games. Salas has been a starter for the last couple years because, yeah, he had a little bit of time to develop. Tanji is a starter at Wisconsin and played a pretty darn good game on Sunday. And he had a little bit of time to develop too, but Nebraska has also not really had the guys who have developed into stars. I mean, the only real Nebraska guy that has, quote, developed into a star, and it's a cult hero status, and that's Sam Hoiberg.
This doesn't look good for Hoiberg, though.
And what's really interesting is you look at under Fred Hoiberg. I mean, Fred Hoiberg had just outside of Isaiah Roby, who was in the Tim Miles era, who is now in the NBA. What really hurt Fred Hoiberg was Delano Banton, who was a random one and done guy for Nebraska. He's playing for the Toronto Raptors right now. And nobody would have thought, with the way Delano Banton played his freshman year at Nebraska on that team, would have ever been an NBA player, let alone a second-round draft pick, and is now a backup point guard. You had Bryce McGowens, whose older brother Trey played a couple years here, but Bryce McGowens was a one and done, and he's in the NBA G League right now. So it's not like Fred Hoiberg hasn't had NBA talent. It's just, it's been weird who's gone and who has stayed. I would have liked to have known what Bryce McGowens and Delano Banton could have done. Banton would have been involved in the year, a couple years, probably would have been a senior a couple years ago for the team that almost made the NIT. Bryce McGowens probably would have been there last year as another scorer with Casey. It'd been fun to watch, but the two guys that have left, the guys that have all left, there's just been nothing to turn around and have the time to develop behind it.
Okay. I want to know from the chat, what do you guys think the losing streak has become? Could it possibly be a curse? What are the observations that you guys have on basketball if you've been watching them? And just for fun, James Boardman says, maybe Dylan Raiola can play basketball. Put him in those old school shorty shorts and Minnie would never leave Lincoln.
If Nebraska went back to the old ABA shorts, now that would be entertaining.
That would be fun. Maybe we can do that. Somebody mentioned in the chat the Savannah Bananas playing basketball. That could be fun.
I was going to say former Nebraska pitcher Kyle Perry, I believe, has a contract with the Savannah Bananas.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you'll have to ask Aaron or Todd one of these times about that. But
yeah, that's so neat. Okay,
considering baseball's only, softball's a week and change away, and baseball's 2 weeks and change away, which is ridiculous to think about me already.
Yeah,
like football just ended.
Yeah, we need something to take our focus off of this. Maybe that's what the problem is. Maybe we've been focusing too hard, putting too much pressure on these guys. We need to back off. I have no idea. But okay, let's switch gears and talk about football. And this week, the Huskers came out with their new roster. Currently, we're going into the spring with 132 players. So we have 8 players that walked who are seniors that could have returned that aren't returning in 2025. Those players are wide receiver Elliott Brown, which he was, on the sidelines a lot, kind of calling in plays. Linebacker Grant Buda, wide receiver Alex Bullock. That was probably the most surprising to me because it wasn't even, a year and a half ago that Matt Rule had given him a scholarship. Defensive back Blake Klussman and fullback Barrett Liebentritt. He's the one who broke a bone in his back this season. Offensive lineman Joey Mancino, defensive back Tavian Thompson, and long snapper Camden Witucky. Now, that in particular, I was not surprised at.
Nope.
At all. Yeah. I don't even know what to say about that, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the big one out of that group is Alex Bullock. However, with the group of wide receivers that are coming in under Dana Holgerson's system, I'm also not surprised because I don't think he quite fits what Dana Holgerson wants. And having to get the roster down to 105, you said those are those 8 of the 10, and we're still at 100 and what? 32, you said?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's still another 27 that needs to be trimmed down at some point in time. And that doesn't include whether or not you bring in anybody else from the transfer portal.
I know. I know. So it's getting to the point where you're just looking at it going, okay, who can we know we can't use next year? Like who hasn't contributed very much, or they have other opportunities, or maybe whatever. And especially being a senior, they've hopefully gotten a degree and maybe have a job waiting for them. We also have two young players who are no longer on the roster, and those guys are fullback Trevor Ruth and linebacker Danny Pasco. Those guys were former walk-ins, and they have not played in any games during their 2-year career at Nebraska. So, yeah. I don't know.
Fullback not really used in Dana Holgorsen's system either.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking that, the coaching staff, the changes coming in, that has to do a lot with who we're going to weed out of the roster, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I wonder who's next, who we're going to see cut. But those are the guys. And I was, like I said, I was most surprised by Alex Bullock because he had contributed quite a bit. But tomorrow, we have a guy visiting. And since Notre Dame and Ohio State just finished the national championship, they had, I think it was a week after that the players could enter the transfer portal, or maybe it was 2 weeks. Anyways, this guy, Rocco Spindler, he's an offensive lineman, will be on campus tomorrow. He just entered the transfer portal on Thursday, and he has made his rounds. He's already been to Indiana. He's had offers already from Michigan, from Pitt, and Virginia. But we're going to have to act pretty quickly if we want him. And the headlines for him say that we are heavily involved with him. So read into that whatever you will.
Hopefully it means eventual commit here in the next couple of days.
Well, I think he would actually have to commit tomorrow.
Yeah,
because I think the full course registration deadline is tomorrow. So he would have to commit tomorrow. From what I was understanding. I don't know. Maybe they could get some sort of waiver for that, but
yeah, I don't know if they could. I mean, even though, because obviously everybody has probably started back for their spring semester already. It's just the fact that the football season just bled into this spring semester. I mean, the national title game usually was basically the opening day of spring semester, and that's obviously no longer the case.
Yeah, they have to figure out these dates. This is the thing that is, I know everybody thinks NIL is ruining college football. These transfer portal dates are killing us. I mean, our coaches can't do the work, and players can't get in to, weigh their options. There has to be a better alternative. There just has to be. I think honestly that there should not be a transfer portal even open until after the spring.
Yeah. And that would be the thing that I think that they would have to explore is finally having just one set amount of time saying, all right, this is the transfer portal window. Coaches, you can recruit. Players, go visit. Figure out what class, where you want to go. Once that's done, coaches go spend time recruiting high school kids
Mhm.
and worry about the
Mhm.
team that you currently possess. Because I feel like the transfer portal windows change almost every month. It's like, yeah, now you can do it, or nah, not now, or yeah, go ahead and we'll do it from this time to this time, or yeah, we might tweak it next season. It's like, no, just sit down, figure out one specific window,
Yeah.
and go from there.
It's due to all of these amendments. Like, if you are a graduate, then you have 10 days after whatever. If you play in the national championship, then you have X number of days to enter the transfer portal. If you have a new coach, you have 30 days to enter the transfer portal. Oh, and by the way, that's to get in your paperwork to the school. The school then has another 48 hours to put you into the transfer portal. I mean, it's just kind of like, you know, who knows? There's so many ways that this could be fudged. It's crazy. I
And
just
and
think,
now
wow.
with the JUCO rules being where
Yeah.
you where
Yeah.
it doesn't count against your eligibility. Hey, now if you're a JUCO guy, hey, you might have more eligibility than you originally thought you had,
Mhm.
which then eats up an extra roster spot or two on a lot of teams who have taken JUCO guys.
Yeah. I like JUCO guys. Okay. So some people are saying, okay, he doesn't have to commit tomorrow from Aaron Rostovsky because he's a grad transfer. Okay. Yeah, actually, you're right. He only has 1 year left. So that would be right, I think. He's a 4-star recruit and a 4-star transfer. 6'5", 325. And his PFF rating is 91 as a transfer. He played in all the snaps for the Ohio State game. He won most of the starts for Notre Dame, but people think that the reason that he is transferring is because he would have gotten lost in the fold as a starter for the next season. So, I mean, he's played against some heavy competition. I would be happy to have him.
Yeah, and whoever gets him is going to have a bona fide starter on your offensive line that if you need offensive line help, why would you not be on the phone trying to get him on campus?
Yeah. Yeah, we need it. But from my understanding is he's an inside lineman.
Yeah.
So we would definitely like have to move somebody to the outside. And Turner Corcoran and Teddy Prohaska, they're also still on the roster, so they may be coming back.
Yeah, I'd be interesting. I'll be interested to see with Teddy in particular, the kind of the same Thomas Fedoni problem, the constant knee problems. I would
Mhm.
I in the end, I would almost not be surprised if of the 27 roster cuts that still need to be made,
Mhm.
that if Teddy Prohaska isn't one of them, just purely because he's just not healthy all the time. And you're going to need
Yeah.
offensive linemen who are dependable and healthy.
Yeah. Dylan Raiola, to be successful, that's what he's going to need. Well, 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 look who joined us.
Yeah.
Greg Mahachko. He says, "Hey y'all. Hey y'all. Thank you for joining us." Okay, well, I think Pit Snipe had had a question for you. I think your nickname is Brute, FYI, Jarek, because I've seen him call you that a couple of times tonight. He says, "You have to be registered and taking classes to participate at all, don't you, Brute?"
I mean, theoretically, I mean, you can find a couple of nerds that can help you out in the meantime, can't you? That's what they always do at the good programs. They can find some people, some tutors for you.
Okay. You are not Brute. Brutus is Aaron Rostovsky. I didn't know that. Thank you. I thought we called him Rostovsky. So, sorry. Oh, that was his actual name on Coronation, Aaron Rostovsky. Okay, now full circle. Thank you. Got it. You guys, you can't have these side conversations without letting us know what's going on. Okay?
Yeah, I've only been on Coronation for 2 years, so
Yeah, same. Not even 2 years. A year and change. So,
yeah.
There's that.
This is only my second full cycle through football and basketball.
All right. Well, hopefully we see some positive news tomorrow, guys. That's what we're looking for from this guy.
Yeah, this would be a massive get for Nebraska football.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you have anything you'd like to add before I go through some of these comments?
Hopefully Nebraska basketball can win sometime soon.
What are the chances against Illinois on Thursday?
When I looked, the ESPN Basketball Power Index, despite the fact that we are at home, only gives us a 35% chance of winning.
Really?
So, officially not great. So when the odds and all that come out, probably Wednesday, I wouldn't be surprised to see us probably being an 8-point home underdog.
Wow.
Nebraska obviously way better at home than they are on the road, but it would take an effort like Purdue last year at home in order to beat Illinois. In that game, Nebraska shot the ball well. They rebounded the ball well. Defensively, they were very scrappy. They limited a lot of Purdue's looks. It would take a Purdue-esque effort last year for us to turn around and beat Illinois on Thursday.
So what you're saying is there's a chance.
Yeah, there's hope. There's always hope. Just ask John Justin. There's always hope.
Yeah, he's taking time off to hopefully channel that energy. And when he channels it, it's going to be channeled into all of Husker sports. Okay, Pit Snipe Husker says, hey, it was set in Nebraska after all. Was Teen Wolf set in Nebraska? I didn't know that.
I'd have to look that up. I don't remember.
You know who we could ask is Greg. He knows every movie thing ever.
I might have to pull that up on my phone real quick. Hold on. Where
Don't. This is what I give him crap for. He looks things up on the show.
Well, now I'm intrigued because there's only like a handful of movies that are ever set in Nebraska. So
James Fordman says, Greggle it.
The only ones that I can think of that are set in Nebraska are About Schmidt, Boys Don't Cry, and that's about it.
Well, no, that's not it, because there's a movie with Jim Carrey, Liar Liar.
Yeah. My outside sources have also told me the movie Election with Matthew Broderick is set in Omaha.
Look at this. I mean, we should just. I know Andy has done a Husker, or what was it? What was the name of his show? I forget the name of it, but it was about movies. Why didn't he cover all the movies that were done in Nebraska? That would have been perfect.
I really should have remembered Election because my wife is my outside source who just reminded me that. And the reason I should have remembered Election is because my brother-in-law is actually an extra in that movie. You see him very, very briefly walking in the background of the scene outside the school, but my brother-in-law is actually in that movie.
Nice.
For a hot 2 or 3 seconds, you see him walking past the camera.
Well, get his autograph for us. Okay, About Schmidt and Terms of Endearment. And I'm not gonna say this one. I'll just put it up. Okay. Boys Don't Cry was Falls City.
That got Hilary Swank her Academy Award, her Oscar for that, actually, for Best Actress.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. Indian Runner was shot in Plattsmouth.
Yeah,
Look at this.
Plattsmouth, yeah. Okay.
Plattsmouth. Sorry.
Yeah, we're weird with pronunciations in Nebraska.
Yeah, that's okay. And then the Matt Damon shrinking one. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Was it?
I thought that was Rick Moranis.
I don't know. I know which one he's
unless
talking
Matt Damon
about.
was one of the kids in that one, but I don't remember that one.
Okay, Greg corrects me and he says, not liar, liar, yes, man.
Okay,
they get
yes,
a
man,
scene
yeah.
at a Husker game. That's right. Downsizing through zero. Greg is just itching to get on right now because he loves talking about movies so much. And I'm sure he's really surprised that that's what we led to. But I don't even know how it came up. Okay. Oh, because of Teen Wolf.
No, Teen Wolf.
Classic. Vince Watson, unfortunately, he says Nebraska may be the easy games. Nebraska basketball.
It's starting to look like that, but and again, the most frustrating part about this 6-game losing streak is Nebraska's had a very legit chance of winning 4 of them and just didn't do it. Purdue and Wisconsin notwithstanding, the other 4 by 5 or less, with the exception of the 10-point overtime loss. But I mean, they blew a 15-point lead. This could be a very different conversation we're having right now, where Nebraska is around 500 in conference play and is firmly in the NCAA tournament if the season ended today. Instead of, if the season ended today, isn't even in the Big Ten tournament, let alone the NCAA.
Okay. We're not going to think that far in advance right now. We're just looking to the next couple of games. Just get past those. And James Boardman says, every year Nebraska basketball lifts up the fans high enough to punch us in the gut.
And then about every 10 years makes the NCAA tournament to then kick us in the nuts. So, yeah.
That was horrible. Right. Yeah.
That's about right.
Yeah. They got to do better for us. Okay. Pit Snipe, when I asked the question what they thought about Nebraska basketball, if it was a curse, he says, not so much a curse, just mental mojo lacking. We're supposed to lose mentality, maybe.
And that
very likely.
I mean, if you look at the fan base in football during the Mike Riley era, the Scott Frost era, the beginning part of the Matt Rule, I mean, anytime Nebraska gets in a close game, all of a sudden everybody just goes, oh, crap, here we go. We're going to turn around and lose. We'll find a way to lose this. Nebraska basketball, it's more of the word of supposed to lose mentality. Yeah, that's honestly more of the expectation. You turn around and win one, you're like, hey, what do you know? Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the basketball fan base, I mean, and with the teams, I mean, there is a reason we've only been to 2 NCAA tournaments this entire century, last year and in 2014. Again, that's just the pedigree. I mean, it's just, it's with basketball in particular, particularly, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. It's more of, it's expect to be crushed on a nightly basis.
Yeah. And Aaron Keene adds, talking about how to fix Nebraska basketball is like asking which hood scoop to put on the rusty AMC Gremlin.
Hey, the rusty AMC Gremlin, if it still runs, it still runs. Doesn't have to be. I
don't think they run. I don't think they run anymore. No, I don't think there are any gremlins out there.
It's the only gremlin you could get wet and it wouldn't cause any problems.
Except it rusts.
I've seen movies. Don't get the gremlin wet.
Well, Jarek, I wanted to say thank you so much for coming on and enlightening us, and hopefully we can do a lot better in the next coming games, right?
Fingers crossed.
Mm.
Here's to hoping, at least.
And recruiting better next season.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say thank you all for your fantastic comments tonight. I appreciate each and every one of you for sharing your insights and love for the Huskers. Your voices matter in this community. Until next time, let's continue to lift each other up and go Big Red. Jarek, would you like to add anything?
Other than go Big Red.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Take care, guys.
Thanks.